Did you know that rock badgers lives in cliffs and rocky places, and the Bible described them as being exceedingly wise? There are 4 things little upon the earth, and they are exceedingly wise. The rock badgers are a feeble folk, yet they make their houses in a cliff. This small furry animal is also referred to as a rock hyrax, a dussie, or a rock rabbit. But let's face it, it looks like a rock rat. So why then call them wise? And even more, why do we call them exceedingly wise? The rock badgers are but a feeble folk, yet they make their houses in the cliff. Looking at the verse, you'll find that their wisdom lies in relation to where they live. Why do they live in cliffs? They live there to protect themselves against predators. The high mountains are for the wild goats. The rocks are refuge for the rock badgers. Those rocks provide safety and refuge for the rock badgers. On the rocks, they have a better view of their surroundings. They can monitor the area where they are. Frustrates their predators because the predators can't spot them from the sky so easily. What makes them so exceedingly wise? They are aware of their danger. The way they do things all points back to being aware that there is an enemy and the enemy is real. So, what can we learn from this small animal? Well, ask yourself, are you aware of the fact that the enemy is real? For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Whenever we forget about the reality of the enemy, we start fighting against each other. We fight against flesh and blood. And the Bible tells us our wrestle is not against flesh and blood. Your struggle will be greater if you cannot recognize the true enemy. You can say, but I do not want to live in fear like the rock badger. Poor rock badger, they live in fear every day of their lives. Well, that's not really the case. Although they have a conscious awareness of the fact that there's predators, they do not live in fear. Actually, they enjoy living on the rocks. They play on the rocks, they bask in the sun on the rocks, they love the rocks. I believe this is the secret of the rock badger. That's what makes them exceedingly wise, is the fact that they see their lives associated with the rocks. Their dwelling place is the rocks. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on a rock. Like the rock badger, you will only find peace in the rock. For I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Ascribe greatness to our God, the rock. His work is perfect and all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness and without iniquity. Just and upright is he. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. Whenever the rock badger sees danger, they jump into the rocks, they hide in the rocks. They know that hiding in the rocks is the best refuge for them. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except God? He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be shaken. On God rests my salvation and my glory. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. But the Lord has become my stronghold and my God, the rock of my refuge. So how do I find the rock in the midst of my crisis? How do I find God when I've reached rock bottom? If you've reached rock bottom in your life, it's time to meet the rock of all ages. Oh, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Like the rock badger, you must find your foundation, your refuge, your dwelling place in the presence of God. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. What catches me about the rock badger is that they are so well camouflaged. They look just like their surroundings. Yes, the rock badger looks like the rock. With their orange-brown color, they blend in with the rocks. This makes it difficult for the predator to spot them. Therefore, be imitators of God as beloved children and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself for us, a fragrant offering and service to God. We must become more like Christ, our rock. Even the rock badgers, if you look at their name, it points back to their dwelling place, rock badgers. We see Christ as our rock, and it must point back to our name, being Christians. You know, if you look at the rock badger, what's unique is that they would start each day the same way, by basking in the sun. They like this little small batteries, and when they have enough energy, they will start their day. Too many times we do not start our day correct. We do not start off by just spending time with God. Just get a conversation going between you and God in the morning so that you can charge your batteries. But what do? We compensate by putting on the screensaver and cutting off some communication just to go through the day. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Discuss your plan with God. Share your heart with him. Tell him your concerns. Ask him for help and guidance. Like the rock badger, we also need to charge our batteries in the morning, basking in the presence of God. What fascinates me the most of the rock badger is how they react and how they adjust and how well God equipped them to deal with the enemy. The strategy of the enemy is very sly, and no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. It will go up straight into the sun, and then it will turn around, and with the sun at its back, it will dive down to the rock badger. And when the rock badger needs to look up into the sun, what do you think it will see? It will probably just see the sun, right? Wrong. They have a special colored iris that covers the top part of the pupil, and it makes it easy for them then to spot the enemy in the sky. We need to ask God to give us special insight in what's going on around us. When we look at our surroundings, that we can spot the enemy behind that shining objects, that we can spot the enemy behind that person, that we can see who the real enemy is. We need to ask God, God, give me that eye so that I can see what you want me to see. So the exceedingly wise rock badger knows that the enemy is real, but do not live in fear. They enjoy the rocks. They see the rocks as their dwelling place. The rocks is their protection. Their focus and joy is the rock. Their safety is the rock. The young grow up in the shelter of the rock. They love the rock, and the rock is their dwelling place. Let's appreciate Jesus as our rock. Let's make him our dwelling place. Let's see him as our refuge. Let's build our houses on the rock. Let's find joy and shelter in our rock. There are so many small things about the rock badger that amazes me. The rock badger lives in colonies of up to 50 at a time. They spend a lot of time together. Many times they will snuggle up together to warm each other up. And what we can learn from them is that we need to spend time with each other as children of God. It boils down to love one another. Another thing they do very well is to keep a lookout for the enemy in the sky. When the one makes alarm, everybody else will run for cover. And what we can learn from that is that we need each other and we can help each other. They also make these amazing sounds, 20 different types of noises. And what they do with these sounds is they proclaim their territory. They want to tell everybody in the surroundings that this is our dwelling place. They're proud of living on the rocks. Their lifespan is about 12 years. The little babies, after the first hour, they are ready to jump on the rocks because they also are comfortable living on the rocks. Do your children know the rock of all ages, will they feel comfortable in the presence of Christ?